Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Crypto holders the world over got some great news tonight, just about 2.5 hours ago, and crypto markets plummeted. Absolutely plummeted. This was a sell the news event. This is something that was understood to be almost certainly coming. Here's the headline on your screen. Donald Trump signs executive order for strategic Bitcoin reserve. Okay, so I'm happy to see that because I'm not a maximalist and Bitcoin's one of my largest individual holdings, but what gives? What about XRP? And you named some other altcoins, Donald Trump. You were just posting about them on social media just a few days ago. What about all them? Oh, well, we're going to get into all of that. But frankly, the fact that the market did plummet after this news, and it timed perfectly, frankly shouldn't be surprising to anybody unless you're brand new to crypto, okay? But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so look at Bitcoin first here, and it's rebounded a little bit, but we got the news around 6:10, maybe 6:11 p.m. The news broke. The first person I saw post about this was David Sachs, and he's the crypto czar for the White House for Donald Trump. He was in the room when Trump signed this. So as far as I'm aware anyway, he was the first person to publicly, let the public know this happened. And immediately after that, I mean, it times up basically to the minute, the market just took a complete crap here. So you can see Bitcoin was at about $91,000, lost about $5,500 in value in just a matter of minutes, dropping down to about $85,500. That's a pretty quick drop. I mean, you're talking in the span of what here? Yeah, so about 45 minutes. That's how much it dropped, and most of it happened pretty much instantly. Now it has rebounded a bit. It's a little over 88,000 at the time that I'm recording this, but XRP did the same thing. I mean, really, pretty much the whole market did. Here you can see XRP was at $2.61, and then it fell as low as $2.39. Now it's at $2.49. There were some people. This stuff always happens. Whatever it is, if there's something that we believe is likely to occur, but it hasn't technically occurred, then what happens is people will buy based on that news, the rumor that something's going to happen. And then when the news actually comes, that's when you sell. Hence the term, buy the rumor, sell the news. That's what that means. And this almost always happens in crypto. So the times when the prices of crypto assets move up just dramatically on news, it's when it was 100% unexpected. When that happens, yeah, then of course it does. But if it's something that people are like, oh yeah, well, based on the signals, it looks like that's coming down the pike. Well, then no, then when it happens, the market just tanks. That is what happens here. And so there's the question here. So, and we'll get it again. Just give me a couple minutes. We'll get into all the specifics here as far as what this means, what it means for XRP specifically. But I just want to note in a video literally yesterday, I was letting you know that there was good reason to believe that Bitcoin was going to be treated differently than XRP and every other altcoin. I talked about this, and to me it seemed like a completely reputable claim. We now know absolutely this is indeed what was going to come to pass. The reason I said it was so reputable, even though this story, here's just one example, it was from the crypto media outlet, The Block. It's because this is coming from someone in the Trump administration. I mean, literally, it's the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. They're writing this article about him titled, and again, this is from yesterday, Bitcoin to be treated differently from altcoins in U.S. crypto reserve, says Howard Lutnick. Okay, so the world knew this, right? We were waiting for this to happen. Let me share with you the most relevant portion of this article because it's a quote from Howard Lutnick of the Trump administration. He says, a Bitcoin strategic reserve is something the president's interested in. He spoke about it all during the campaign trail, and I think you're going to see it executed on Friday. So Bitcoin is one thing, and then the other currencies, the other crypto tokens, I think will be treated differently. Positively, but differently. So he was promising, okay, you'll still like what you get because it's something, but Bitcoin's going to be treated differently. And of course, I read that, and I think pretty much every sane person read that as Bitcoin's going to be treated favorably compared to altcoins. That's how I read that. And this should not be a surprise. And this is indeed what came to pass here. Now, of course, there are always questions about, Trump's powers. What can he do? Could he create a strategic Bitcoin reserve? So there's the idea of creating a shell of a thing on paper, but then there's a whole different question of, can you make the government of the United States purchase a bunch of a thing? Can you, as a stockpile? Like, can you actually, as a reserve asset? Because something like that would normally take congressional approval, right? So obviously have that with gold. You know, the United States is the largest holder of gold on the entire planet. Holds almost what, like almost half $1 trillion worth of gold, I believe, is what the United States has. So the largest holder by quite a bit. But if you want to talk about investing money from taxpayers into something like Bitcoin or XRP or anything, there should be congressional approval for something like that. And then some people will argue back and say, okay, well, you can do it by executive order. And to which I say, yeah, but then you're just going to run into a bunch of lawsuits. How are you sure you can get a ton of money flowing? To what degree could you anyway? And then also, if it's done by executive order, then the second Trump's gone and then an opposing power is enforced, because one day, of course, because it's always going to go back and forth. One day the Democrats will get their act together and they will get elected again. I don't know if it'll be the next time they run or another 4 years after that. I don't pretend to know. But eventually they will be in power again, and they can, whoever the president is, can absolutely repeal any executive order that they want. Now, they can't repeal, something that has been passed by Congress. That would take a whole lot more heavy lifting. So the question was, could he even do this? And I think he recognized that his powers are limited here based on what he ended up passing. And a lot of people were actually genuinely disappointed by this. And I recognize this. Like, it's very clear to read the room. Most people were initially disappointed by this news, which I'm going to get into in great detail here. I'm just going through it in particular order. But this is something to be very excited about. So even though, if you're paying attention, you should have known that something like this was likely to come, even especially the Bitcoin maximalists, they were hoping for something even greater. All right. And for XRP holders, I hope that you guys aren't disappointed, because this is more than I ever would have hoped for even a year ago, So yes, just a few days ago, Trump posted on social media, and he cited that XRP, Cardano, and Solana would be part of a strategic reserve. And it specifically cited just those three, and first wrote XRP, and then he had to follow it up later because he realized that he had accidentally dropped a bomb or something. And he posted, yeah, of course, Bitcoin and Ether, so he worded it something to the effect of, yes, of course, they'd be part of what we're doing here too, something to that effect. But given that he did talk about XRP, and then the headline is here, Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, well, what's going on? Well, the favoritism we knew was coming. So here's a post from the Crypto Czar, from David Sachs here, White House AI and Crypto Czar. He posted this just this morning. He said, over the past decade, the federal government sold approximately 195,000 Bitcoin for proceeds of $366 million. If the government had held the Bitcoin, it would be worth over $17 billion today. That's how much it has cost American taxpayers not to have a long-term strategy. And so there's yet another hint. And it is true that, I mean, the profits that would have been there if the government had just held would have been substantial here. And so that, again, that was yet another hint. But the hint there is the government's just going to hold. It doesn't mean they're going on a buying spree for Bitcoin. And plus, I'd be skeptical of that with Bitcoin at the cycle peak. Like, come on, guys. You think that... Look, it's one thing for whales to buy, and this is their business, and then they're going to sell even closer to the peak. We're already fairly close. Is this the type of thing that in the coming months and over the next year, you would expect the government to do, just buy this when historically Bitcoin then crashes, whatever the percentage are, 67, 80%, whatever, after you hit those peaks? Would this be even the time for the government to do that? Like, I've always been skeptical of any sort of massive way the government purchasing massive bags, and that's not what's happening. It simply is not. And so there's this long post from David Sachs, and again, as far as I know, this is the first public notification of this. It was at 6:11 p.m., which would make sense. He's the Crypto Czar. Now, there's a really good summary of exactly what this is from Fox Business journalist Eleanor Terrett. And so this is it. She wrote, actually, we do want to start with this one. Here's the first one. So White House Crypto Czar David Sachs says Donald Trump has just signed an executive order to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve using assets already owned by the federal government. He says the secretaries of the Treasury and Commerce, that would be Howard Lutnick, who I just mentioned, and Scott Bessent, are also authorized to develop budget-neutral strategies for acquiring additional Bitcoin, provided that those strategies have no incremental costs on American taxpayers. Separately, a digital asset stockpile will be created that includes other cryptocurrencies aside from Bitcoin using seized assets already owned by the government. So let me first say this. The United States is about $36.5 trillion in debt, and the budget is not balanced. In fact, the budget hasn't been balanced in the United States for about 25 years, right around there. So, if you're talking about balancing the budget, okay, I wonder how most people, most citizens would feel about this, because even if you're finding budget neutral ways to do this, don't you think a lot of people who, especially outside of the world of crypto, would rather have any savings applied towards the debt or something to, decrease the annual budget for the United States of America? Maybe some, I'm just wondering. I don't know to what, so we're in crypto world, you and I, everybody listening here, I understand that. We want this stuff. I don't know for sure what the thirst is. Yes, there are something like 55 million Americans, that's a big percentage of Americans that do hold cryptocurrencies. Is that enough? Or have we reached the tipping point where everybody's just going to agree that we should be doing this? I don't know. But here are the rest of the details. Deeper dive. And again, this is from Eleanor Terrett. So Donald Trump's executive order calls for two separate things: a strategic reserve and a stockpile. And folks, this is where the difference between how Bitcoin is being treated and everything else comes in, which again, we got the hint yesterday in strong form from Howard Lutnick. Anyway, she writes, the strategic reserve will contain only Bitcoin, the digital asset with the most store of value, using the 200,000 or so tokens already in the government's possession that has been seized over the years through criminal and civil forfeiture. Sachs says Besant and Lutnick have also been given authorization to explore means of acquiring more Bitcoin through avenues that will not cost the taxpayer. And so, folks, that means they're going to try and find some clever ways to take away from some sort of expense here, move it over to another column, and then bam, buy some Bitcoin with it. But it's not the type of thing that Bitcoin maximalists were hoping for, which really you'd need from congressional approval, is just here's the strategy. We're going to buy an absurd amount of Bitcoin, and we're throwing the funds in, like we're just doing that, which of course happens as the dollar's getting printed into oblivion, which is just kind of hilarious. But that's the wet dream of the Bitcoin maximalists. That's what they didn't get that, so tons of them are throwing a fit, even though this is really good news. They just wanted news kind of like this, but on a much more grand scale. That's what they actually wanted. And frankly, for years, I always thought like, whatever coin's at the top, even if it's Bitcoin, whenever the time comes where the United States thinks, hey, it makes sense to have a cryptocurrency as a reserve asset, I always just figured, well, Bitcoin's the one that's known. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the one that gets the special treatment. But over the years, if you've been following me for a long time, you may remember anytime I've talked about this, I've acknowledged that it could be multiple coins that end up in a strategic reserve, including XRP, but that would, we'll have to see how that kind of plays out. The fact that we're even talking about something beyond just Bitcoin, I mean, it's actually, first of all, it's amazing that this is happening with Bitcoin in 2025. This seemed impossible over the last few years. So that's already badass enough, frankly, because I'm not a toxic maximalist. I think that's fantastic. But the fact that XRP and other coins at all are going to be treated with favor, because consider this, there are a huge number of coins. Like, even outside of the ridiculous number of meme coins, there's like tens of thousands of cryptocurrencies already. And so to know that XRP and just a few others are getting treated in a particular way by the government because they're considered, made in USA, that's something. That's still freaking amazing. Almost no coins are getting any sort of special treatment from the government, but XRP still is one of them. That's not nothing. That's definitely something. But anyway, Eleanor continues here. She says, the executive order also mandates a full audit of all the digital assets currently in the government's possession. The other is a digital asset stockpile containing assets other than Bitcoin, presumably XRP, Cardano, Ethereum, and Solana, as announced by the president last week, and potentially others. So, folks, couple of things there. XRP still in the mix, obviously. Great news for XRP holders, frankly, even though the price dropped. The price plummeted for crypto very quickly. And it's stupid, but, kind of expected because that's what happens. So you sell the news events. But in the executive order, again, As she cites here, that we need a full audit of the digital assets held currently. Like, Trump doesn't know, not with precision, what cryptocurrencies are held by the government and how much. We don't even know for sure how much Bitcoin is held. We have a number. Is it like 100% precise? No, actually it's not. They need to audit this and find out, because it's a big government, all sorts of different agencies, and they're not always great at talking to one another. So you got to compile all of this information, right? We don't even know what other coins the government holds, right? But XRP would be part of this. Anyway, then she says the key difference between the reserve and the stockpile is that the government will not actively look for ways to purchase more of the assets contained in the stockpile. It will only explore using government funds if they can find budget-neutral ways to do that on buying Bitcoin. Sachs says the purpose of the stockpile is responsible stewardship of the government's digital assets under the Treasury. And I will note that that was reposted by David Sachs, again, the crypto czar, and he wrote, accurate, one word, accurate. So everything I just shared with you, that's coming from the White House. That's coming from the White House crypto czar. And again, XRP was included in what he just said was accurate, right? So that's actually good. This is a positive development. It's a question of scale, and if your hopes were above whatever this is, then you're going to feel crushed. If your hopes were lower, then you're going to feel like this is fantastic, and if this is about what you hope for, they're going to feel kind of neutral. It just depends on where you're coming from. But it is true that Bitcoin is going to be treated differently, and there will be no attempts to purchase additional XRP or other coins. That's how it stands right now. Now, there's also, again, the question, though, even though this is a favored Bitcoin position for sure, coming directly from Trump, which isn't, frankly, that huge of a surprise, even though Bitcoin is favored here unquestionably, just because they're going to try and find budget-neutral ways to buy Bitcoin, and maybe they will do that, it doesn't mean there won't be tremendous pushback. It doesn't mean that things can't go negative when they try to do that. There's a question of legally what can actually be done, and if you're going outside the bounds of that, and I'm not saying that it would be, I'm just sharing with you the line of thinking, then there can be pushback and courts can step in, so on and so forth. So we don't know to what degree in the real world this is actually going to be some sort of monstrous win for Bitcoin. Now, in terms of positioning, unquestionably it is. To have the United States from the top here say, yeah, we put the stamp of approval on crypto and find even if Bitcoin's the flagship crypto here, awesome, I'm for it. This is amazing. This is going to create a bigger crypto pie, more money flowing into the entire space, including everything else, like XRP, which also, again, is being treated favorably here based on everything we've seen to this point. So this is still absolutely fantastic. I'm very happy to see this. There's also this post. So the blockchain backer wrote to David Sachs and said, so can you elaborate on the crypto strategic reserve, including XRP, Solana, and Cardano thing that he posted about 4 days ago, since the US government doesn't own those? Which is a great question, of course. And so I responded with a couple of my thoughts on this. I said, the United States could own a bit of all of those coins right now from forfeitures that we're unaware of. There may be court cases that weren't highly publicized that we haven't heard about. Even if so, I suspect the amounts of these coins held will be pretty minuscule. And so that's just my speculation. That, the amounts probably wouldn't exactly be staggering. But if the United States has XRP and other coins through forfeitures and legal proceedings, that wouldn't surprise me at all. We just don't technically know that for sure. Now, if we find out they don't, then yeah, fine. What in the ever-loving hell was that post 4 days ago? Why are you talking about XRP in a national stockpile if you knew that you weren't going to buy it and you knew that you didn't already have some in possession? What in the ever-loving... Then I'd say, what is this? Like, this makes no damn sense. So I'm hoping that he knows that there's something, or else he wouldn't have mentioned those coins, including XRP. That would be my hope. Otherwise, this is completely irrational. To go out and say, yes, XRP is going to be a part of this, because that would show some discombobulation here coming from the administration. So I'm assuming that's not the case. We'll just have to wait and see exactly how that plays out here. But I'm certainly optimistic. Either way, this is really great stuff. You should be thrilled if you're an XRP holder. And things can evolve. Like, all that's going to happen the more time passes and more people hold crypto is increasingly everybody that matters on the planet is going to hold crypto. And that's just going to be great for all of us. It's just that we beat almost every human on the planet to the space. So, we win, right? About 5% of humans hold any crypto and less than 1% of humans hold XRP. So we're right. It's going to keep going this direction. You're just early, but congratulations. That's great. So anyway, the point is, as this evolves, and assuming that the stockpile lives, which why wouldn't the one that XRP is a part of, well, that can morph into something where actually, you do actively make purchases. Now, I think that that's just way more likely in years to come as there's congressional desire for that to happen. And I'm not convinced that we're there yet. It means I'm not saying it's impossible, but like, do we really have a sufficient majority in Congress to pass anything like that? Do we? I mean, super if so. I haven't seen the arguments as to why that's the most likely thing. If it is, then great, and we'll talk about it. I'm just not so. And by the way, if you thought that was the most, if you thought that was realistic to do, wouldn't you just push for that instead of doing the executive order? Because that would have way more power. If Congress approves, then you can do way more. You can buy way more Bitcoin then. So like, this is weaker than that. It just is. It's also possible that this can be morphed into something more meaningful in the future when there is a sufficient appetite from Congress. And then maybe a whole bunch more crypto, Bitcoin specifically here, would get purchased. So my point is, all of this in the future, in the years to come, it can morph into something substantially more meaningful, including for XRP. But even if XRP weren't included in anything at all, and it really were just Bitcoin, I would still be thrilled about this. Getting the stamp of approval on crypto from the United States in that way is just fantastic. More money then flows into XRP and everything else. It's obvious. This is a huge win. So I just think it makes all the sense in the world to be really excited about this. Here's a post from Matt Hogan. He's the CIO of Bitwise. And he wrote, impacts of the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Number one, dramatically reduces the likelihood the US government will someday ban Bitcoin. Number two, dramatically increases the likelihood that other nations will establish strategic Bitcoin reserves. Number three, accelerates the speed at which other nations will consider establishing strategic Bitcoin reserves because it creates a short-term window for nations to front-run potential additional buying by the United States. And number four, makes it much harder for institutions, from national account advisor platforms to quasi-governmental agencies like the IMF, to position Bitcoin as somehow dangerous or inappropriate to hold. Yeah, so I think that's a good take. That's just broadly speaking quite correct here. So it's good news, and then however you feel about things in general will determine how excited you are about this. This is like absolutely within the realm of what I thought was more likely to happen. I've never thought that Bitcoin would actually try and run through something so massive that very clearly it would take congressional approval to do, in terms of purchasing just the crazy amounts. It would purchase sailor levels of like Bitcoin, like 500,000 or a million Bitcoin or whatever the number would be. I never thought that was the most probable thing at this juncture in time anyway. Because again, that would heavily be challenged, and that would be pricey. And plans like that have been noted. Like, even if you're going to go for that, I think the Lummis plan, the Senator Lummis, I think she was the one that was pushing for it. I could be mistaken here. I'm just pulling from memory. But I believe that there was a proposal that has been set forth in the past, and maybe it would be again, that might take like 20 years to acquire that much or something like that. So it depends on the parameters of the thing, and it depends on what the desire of those in Congress are, and that's based on the constituency of their voters. So there's a lot of moving parts to all of this here. But I just don't know how you don't get excited for this. Like, this is obviously win. And then as far as it's selling, yes, the market's sold off, but that's normal. People act like damn idiots. And so for those that recognize this, a lot of people are just recognizing it as an opportunity to accumulate. Those who are in a buying mood, they are taking advantage of it. They already have. The price already rebounded a little bit. So this is one of those things where for this cycle, I don't know that it's going to matter too much in terms of the supply and demand dynamics. I don't think that it will. I mean, literally, understand, this is Bitcoin the United States already had, and instead of just acknowledging that we hold it, now we're calling it a strategic Bitcoin reserve. That's the change. But the perception actually does matter. It actually does. It's just that in terms of the supply and demand dynamics, it's not changing a damn thing, but it could over a span of years and decades, and that I would expect. That I absolutely would expect. So even though it would, like, I would have preferred that there was no favoritism for any coin, I'm not surprised that this is indeed the case, and I'm not upset about it at all. Again, Bitcoin's one of my largest holdings. I'm happy to see it. Now, I'm going to sell the hell out of it this cycle. I'm still planning on doing that, but hey, I'm pro crypto, man. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say, all right? That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Lambo.